Hi, my name is Garrett Kenyon. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Coffee with a Missionary. We're so glad that you're here. And I'm here with my friends, the Gordons, Joshua and Alina Gordon. They are missionary candidate missionaries to the great country of Costa Rica. And so we're excited to have them here on this episode. And we're just going to jump right in. Okay. Guys, I would love to kind of hear about your calling separately. How God called you and how you are here in this moment.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Okay. I did a short-term missions trip to Belize, Central America. And on that trip, I just felt like the Lord was speaking to me, Alina, this is what I want you to give your life for. And fast forward a bunch of years and a bunch of life. And I'm in Costa Rica and serving, and it feels like home. And I love what God has brought to us.
Amen. Kind of the same thing. I was on a short-term trip to Nicaragua, and I was working at an orphanage in Hanatega, and the kids just grabbed my heart. And whenever we were leaving, I was just like bawling, crying, and I just felt just the heaviness of the Holy Spirit. I was like, this is what I created you to do. And many years later, I finally made it to Costa Rica.
Love it. And you guys have been serving short-term, what we call missionary associate. How has that been in this process? How have you enjoyed that time? Obviously, you have because you want to go back. But what has that kind of been for you? What has that kind of stirred you to want to continue?
Well, just the call. Mm-hmm. The call is heavy, and it's such a honorable burden.
Okay.
To be called to missions. As far as being missionary associates later in life, that was a little bit more difficult for us, to be honest. But we had full plates, and we enjoyed serving. We enjoyed getting to know the people. And it was just a blessing to serve this term.
Yeah. It was a challenge learning the language.
Yeah.
Just, in my very early 40s.
No worries.
But just to be able to jump in a new culture, like with both feet, and just to be immersed in it. And just the people are just so loving and so kind and so graceful. And we just fell in love with just the culture and the ticos and the platinos.
For sure.
Everything and I'm an animal lover too, so all the wildlife and the rainforest is just so awesome to see. Yeah. So,
tell me a little bit about the last 2 years of your ministry work. What has that looked like? What has that entailed for you guys?
Well, for the first year, I was in Sincel for a full year. But then after that, she was already serving with Child Hope, and we did Chicos and Chicas de Paramista, which is a after-school program. And the Child Hope schools are in some of the roughest areas in San Jose. We have 4 schools in San Jose we work with very closely. And we would just go there and provide a safe place for the kids and try to kind of teach them soft skills, because their home environments weren't always the best. So just, respect for women, the way a man of God should carry himself, the way, the value that women have, because in these neighborhoods, these young boys and girls are either being groomed for gang life or for prostitution, which is legal in Costa Rica.
Okay. And so while he was studying, you were working with Child Hope. What did that look like for you?
Well, I actually tried to do a video one day of my life, and I think it lasted for like 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. And so some days I would go to the office and try to build relationships with those people in the Child Hope office. Relationships are really, really important in Latin America. So that was a big part of my personal goal. Also hosted short-term missions groups, which is wild and fun to see people just operating in their gifts and seeing God call people into missions, and just seeing the children light up when teams come and bring fun activities. Hosted camp, kids camp.
Oh, wow. That's got to be fun.
Yeah.
Tiring, I bet.
Yeah.
It was, yes, all of that. All of that. So just whatever our hands found to do, my hands found to do, I did it. Whether it would be jumping in the box truck, delivering supplies to the neighborhoods without, or
helping with the church plant in an area that didn't even have running water.
Oh, wow.
Outside of one of the rougher areas.
Oh, wow.
So.
Yes, and that pastor actually called me last month, and she's planning another church.
Oh, wow.
So it's so exciting because she's like, "Oh, can you come? I need you to preach because I'm planning another church. I'm leaving, so we'll be back."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit about one of your greatest wins from this last term for you.
For me, just learning the language. Like, I love to preach. And before I got into missions, I was in sales, so communication was kind of like my forte. But I was able to learn enough Spanish to where I preached like 8 times.
Oh, that's awesome.
And was just able, even though like the language was probably a little bit choppy, every service people would come up to me and just say, "Man, that really touched me," or "This part like really ministered to me." So
very cool.
That was one of my highlights.
And you?
Yeah, for me, it was relationships. Just that was really important for me this term, was to build those national relationships. And I feel like I really was intentional about that. And so that was a win.
I love that. And I know that you're going back to Costa Rica. I know that you guys are going through the career process. And now that you're going back, what is in store for you? What does that look like? What is your next kind of 4 years look like for you as you guys are looking for that future and going back to Costa Rica, which you already know and you already speak the language, but what does that look like now?
We feel like God has given us a vision to open kind of like what you would call maybe a hope center.
Okay.
So Josh will be working throughout the week with people who feel like they need free from addiction. So he will be doing that throughout the week. I'm going to work with single mothers at some extent, and then we'll just have church there on Sundays. And so that's
so I hear church planning. I hear planning a ministry center. Wow, that's a lot, but that's amazing. And so do you feel like your last 2 years has helped gear you and maybe be a platform and springboard into where this is going?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Because we have a childhood school on the side of the country that we're moving to, we were able to take several trips out there and learn more about the culture and the needs. And that's where really God birthed the seed and the vision for what we're going to be doing.
We just fell in love with that side of the country. And the province that we're hopefully going to is known as the Forgotten Province in Costa Rica. And God just really I don't know, touched our hearts for them, and they claimed us right away, and said, "You're ours, and you love us, and we love you." So it's really exciting.
I love that. And in that, as you're looking at working with the National Church, how have you viewed your relationship with them over the last 2 years, and then maybe even looking at in the future, what are things that you can really work with on establishing even a stronger relationship with the National Church in Costa Rica?
We have a really strong relationship with the Child Hope pastors in Costa Rica. And we have met with the superintendent and asked him, Pastor Ricardo, what is your heart? What is a dream that you have that hasn't came to pass that we can help to birth? And he told us the first thing was an international church. And that was a vision that we had. And we didn't tell him that we had that vision. But he said this, when we shared about the vision, he said, "This is God, and I want you to do it." And so
very cool.
We hope to be able to build more relationships with the National Church on that side, but just showing up, and if they needed help with anything, just being there.
Yeah. Just
being there, even if it was just to pass out flyers or water or whatever, just being there to serve.
Wow, it's interesting that you're making that comment, because even earlier today, I heard someone mention about establishing that and just showing up, and how important that is and how relevant that is. In that, I would say, some of the things I would love to hear a little bit about too is looking at your next term as you begin to plant. You're going to have to move. So you're moving out of the city. So that's pretty far out.
Yep.
Because I know that area. That will bring new challenges. So as you're looking at that, and I know you're back fundraising and friend raising, as we like to call it, raising our friends. What are you asking for people to stand with you for as you look for the future, as you head back to Costa Rica in this forgotten province? What are things that people that you're challenging the local church to stand with you on?
The top thing is prayer.
Yeah.
That side of the country has little church presence, whether it be Catholic or evangelical.
Wow.
And so there are strongholds there. And we know that we're going into a dark area. We know that we need to be upheld in prayer. And not just as a cliche, pray for us, but for real. We know that there are going to be strongholds that are going to have to be broken, and we even have started feeling them now. So that is the top thing. It's just to be in prayer with us about that. And then the other thing is a Costa Rican couple to come alongside of us that has the same vision and dream, because we want it to be not us in the front, but a Costa Rican in the front. So
very cool. That's awesome. So you're looking at building a team, a national team.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking for any help from American people coming down?
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what do you see that being?
I would love to add someone on the team that is gifted in teaching English as a second language, because the fun fact about Limon in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica is that they have more of an English presence over there. So everyone has like a little bit, but to help them develop that so they can get better jobs and get out of poverty and make a better life for them and their family. But with the church plant, we need children's workers, we need youth workers, we need
media.
I need them all. So you are out there, come with me. Oh.
I love that. So as you're looking and you're raising money, what does that process look for you as you're switching from an MA budget to a career budget? That's a big leap. We all know that. That brings on cash budget, that brings on ministry budget. What walls are you looking at right now? What are you facing? I would say maybe that's like a massive difference between moving from an MA into a career. What's your big walls that you're like, wow, those are big walls, Lord. I don't know how I'm going to go over them.
I would say probably the amount of work funds, because as an MA, you don't have work funds. So the cash budget just seems like a mountain right now, because it was almost triple what our last budget looked like. Sure. But God's faithful. And we come from North Carolina. We have a great district, so we're just looking for the right friendships to partner with.
Yeah, and we know that God called us.
Yeah.
He placed this burden in our hearts, and so He's going to provide. He's not a God who would call us and then say, "Oh, you figure it out." No.
Yeah.
As long as we are faithful to do the work, He's faithful to provide.
Amen. And I think that so many times we often look at. I remember our first budget that was thrown at me in an email, and I thought to myself, there's not a chance. And every time I come back, there's not a chance. And you have like, okay, I'm just going to have to dig in my heels and just go. But every time you're just like, how in the world are you going to do this? And the Lord is just faithful. And I love that you said that. As looking in Costa Rica, tell us a little bit about the culture of Costa Rica. What is that culture? What's the difference that you would say maybe even in the church culture can be a little bit different than our churches in the U.S. What does that look like, and how do you maybe plan to navigate that? Even that differences. I know Costa Ricans are great people. We love them so much. But how do you navigate that major difference between what the U.S. church culture is and the Costa Rican church culture is?
Okay, well, that's a great question. And the U.S. culture, right now especially, is more relaxed.
Yeah.
Costa Rican culture as a whole in the church, you have some that aren't, but mostly they're still pretty conservative. And so that is something to navigate. I didn't come from a Christian background. So when I came to church the first time, I didn't know how to dress or how to talk or how to behave, I think during prayer one time I turned over the pew in the back, and thank God they let me come back again. But people like that come into church and don't know how to behave. Sometimes that can be a little, in conservative churches, a choke. It can be difficult. So I'm praying that the Lord allow us to plant a church that keeps true to the Costa Rican culture, but also it's okay if you come in flip-flops.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you come in and don't know how to behave yet. Yeah. It's not disrespecting. They just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of mentioned, so you opened the door, so we're going to walk there for a moment. You talked a little bit about your kind of like your background history. Let's look a little bit about that, because I think so many times the Lord utilizes that as develops our testimony and becomes a platform. I would love to hear a little bit about your platform of that, of how the Lord's going to utilize that to reach. And I know he will, and I can hear it coming.
Yeah.
But I would love for our audience to hear that too, because this is a great way for them to hear how the Lord takes our histories, whatever they are, and allows it to be a platform that we stand on. So tell us a little bit about that, if you don't.
Well, I don't know how God's going to use it. It's up to him. But I do know that that it really burdens me to see, we go out and evangelize and tell people to come to church, and then if they're not coming looking like we want them to, even in the U.S. it happens, or acting like we want them to, then you're told not to come back. And so, or told, oh, you can come back, but you have to put on something different, or those shorts are too short or something. No crop tops. But not that I would do that. No, I did. I definitely did as a teenager. But I thank God for those people who were like, you know what? It's okay. She just needs to come to church, and that would come and pick me up and bring me to church, and just have the patience and grace for where I was at that moment. Yeah. And that's the only reason I'm here today, is because someone was patient with me and had grace for me. And so my goal is to do that for others, for other young girls that Jesus is after. He's after them.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your burden for single moms. That's not a common burden that I hear often that people bring out. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about that. Like, really, I love that, because a lot of people don't know that my wife, Tara, was brought up by a single mom for a long time. A lot of people don't know that. And so when we ever hear people talk about single mom ministry, we are all on board, because I know how vital that is. Yep. Tell us a little bit about that, like how you really feel the Lord is stirring that in you.
My dad died when I was 4. He died of leukemia, and my mom was a single mom. And I just saw so many times that single moms feel trapped. They feel trapped for whatever reason. They feel like they need to be in a relationship in order to provide for their children, or it's just hard to provide for your children when you're the only one and you're working 2 or 3 jobs. And sometimes it's just for lack of education or lack of resources that people stay trapped in, say, abusive relationships or that kind of thing. So my heart just goes out to them to just give them Jesus first and foremost, but also to share with them, hey, there are resources for you. You have another option in life. And so that's where my burden comes from.
Very cool. I love it. Josh, as you were saying earlier that you were looking at building a hope center. Tell us a little bit about that, like how you feel the Lord guiding you and directing you there in that beautiful province, which I love, by the way, and they have great waves because I'm a surfer, and so I love the province. So the next time I go, I know I can walk in flip-flops off the beach. I'm okay with that. But tell us a little bit about that. Like, what does that look like? What do you kind of see the Lord laying on your heart for that vision?
Well, for my part of the Hope Center, I want to do a recovery ministry because I am an adult and teen challenge graduate.
Awesome.
So I come from a passive addiction, and I just know that no matter how bad your story looks in the moment, like God's not done with you yet. And like if you truly submit to him, like he can bring you freedom that you don't even think is possible. Yeah. And you can walk out this great adventure that we're doing in Costa Rica. But that's kind of just my burden, because I know I was raised in the church and my mom had a bipolar and kind of a dysfunctional family behind closed doors. And so I kind of rejected God at an early age and got bitter at the church and went down the wrong path. But God's so faithful.
Yeah, for sure.
He is so faithful.
Do you feel the Lord kind of stirring you, not just building a center, but I'm just hearing you kind of just share a little bit. I'm wondering, like, I feel like maybe the Lord might even be launching you as well, like developing with these relationships that you've talked about in your province, that there could be like some conversations you get to have with pastors on developing some classes or coursework for our pastors there that maybe can work with addicts and addiction and kind of recovery programs and stuff. Do you feel like the Lord kind of might be leaning that too down your way, maybe down the road? Or?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to be partnering with someone who's been doing that in Ecuador. Awesome. Leah and Michael Beatty.
Oh, very
with the Ep3 project.
Oh, very
so
cool.
We kind of want to kind of revamp their program and make it for international. And
very cool.
Kind of launched a kind
awesome.
of a NA /
Yeah, for sure. And for some of our guests who don't know that program, would you tell us about that program, what it looks like, what that really is, that'll allow them to kind of jump on board with you? And
yeah, the Ep3 project is based out of Cuenca, Ecuador, and it's been going for 10 years, and it is a recovery group that they have multiple nights a week. And they meet, and it's just a safe place, kind of like an NAAA, but it's a faith-based, so they have curriculum for discipleship and stuff like that. And it's an open group. It's not like a closed group where anyone off the streets can come in and seek help.
That's awesome. I love that. I love how the Lord puts people on our paths. And I would love to hear how that even happened, because I'm sure the Lord is like interweaving without us even realizing, like how the Lord brought them into you guys and allowed you to even know that program. And that's just, it's so fascinating how the Lord brings people into our lives for maybe a moment or 2 or 3 moments and allows us to maybe tag on to something that we can utilize for his kingdom and somewhere else. And even if we turn and twist it, I would love to hear a little bit about the process that you've walked through with AGWM. And I know that we could get in trouble, so I'll be careful. I would just love to hear a little bit, because I know so many times when we have guests come on to Coffee with a Missionary, we don't always hear the process from start to finish. Walk our people through, because I know part of what our heart for this program is that we just are real, and that we just get to reveal how easy it is, and it's easy in a way. It's not always so easy, but how would somebody consider coming to work with you guys if they watch this episode or watch the reel? Like, walk them through that process.
Well, for us, we knew someone, so it's always that always helps, right?
Relationships.
If you know someone, it all starts with relationships. But if someone would want to come work with us specifically, what we've kind of asked of other people who have expressed interest is that you just come and spend a week with us, not with a whole team, but just you or just your family, and see what it's like on the ground without a missions team. Because life as a missionary, as you know, is very different when a team is there compared to day to day. And so we ask those people to get their own rental and to navigate getting groceries and that kind of thing for that week. Not that we won't help you, we will, and we'll provide ministry opportunities. However, we don't want it to be like a honeymoon kind of thing.
Vacation. You don't want to vacation.
Right. We don't want it to be a vacation. We want it to look like real life. And so that's what we ask, is that you do that. Of course, pray, because if you're not called, don't do it.
That's good.
Don't do it. it's good, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a heavy burden. But it's so humbling to have it, and it's a blessing, and we thank God every day for it.
Yeah. I've said earlier, and in my life and our existence, I had a pastor once, and I always repeat it, but it's now my phrase. We don't have to, we get to.
Right.
And I love that phrase that I stole from him, and now I own it because it's so true. We don't have to do this, but we get to be a part of the greatest evangelism aspect the world has ever seen. I love hearing your story. I really do. And I know that God's got big things in store for you. As we're wrapping up our kind of moment together, what would be 2 things that you would like to challenge our viewers or listeners with? 2 things, it can be anything you want. What are 2 things that you could challenge them if you could have an opportunity to speak into them and plant a seed into their life? What would it be?
Well, I would say first, we got to all recognize that God is a missional God. And it doesn't matter if you're going overseas or across the street. Like, really seek God and say, hey, I'm part of your story now. Where do I fit? And whether that's serving at your local church or getting on the LAC website and getting in the pipeline and finding someone to team up with, overseas, just find your place, but really seek God's face and know that, man, I was created to do this for this season. Yeah. But then also don't hold on to that season so tight to whenever God's trying to shift you, you don't want to let it go. So just, take his calling with open hands, wherever that may lead you. And I promise you, if you do that, man, he'll blow your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say the other thing is, if you've been hurt in ministry or, you started out and then you had an obstacle or something that diverted you, go back to what God spoke to you and pick that up and know that his callings are without repentance. And so just continue that calling and get that healing that you need and then walk it out.
Yeah. One of the things that our new tagline in LAC, and I've said this on a past episode, I'm going to say it again, is that we're watching God change the narrative everywhere we go. But he does that by allowing us to join the story with him and then to join the story with those around us. And so thank you so much for taking the time to kind of just share your heart, be real a little bit, and let our amazing audience around the U.S. to really hear you and get to know you as one of our LAC beloved missionaries in the great country of Costa Rica, where they have great surfing and their coffee's okay.
Great coffee.
But we're just so thankful that you were a part of this episode with us today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.